Lesson 10.6, trigonometric functions continued. So day 2, we are continuing our discussion of SO, CA, TOA. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine adjacent over hypotenuse, tangent opposite over adjacent. It's going to be very important that you can think automatically which trig function goes with which combination of sides. That's why it's important to remember SO, CA, TOA. Also, we kind of talked at the end of the day yesterday, if you know the angle measure, you use the keys sine, cosine, and tangent. If you do not know the angle measure, so you're solving for an angle measure, that is when you use the inverse, the -1, inverse sine, inverse cosine, inverse tangent. And then that will undo the ratio and give you the angle measure. So it's important that you know all of that, when to use sine and when to use inverse sine. Makes a huge difference. Okay, when we're talking about this, your directions will be solve the right triangle. Okay, here's what solve the right triangle means. You find all missing, that's supposed to be missing, and missing is missing an N, by the way, all missing measures, including sides and angles. So you will be given a little bit of information, and then you have to find the rest. Now, it looks like to me as I look through these problems, I started off small, where you only had to find one thing. And then the examples at the bottom, oh, there is my worm problem from yesterday. Okay, starting off from the bottom, then that will be the whole right triangle. So we start off with finding one thing. That's enough. Okay, so let's look at example A. Triangle ABC. Of course, it shows you the C is the right angle. It shows you the hypotenuse is 20. And it shows this side is 12. Can anybody tell me what letter that would be? Tora? 12 is little a. Yep. Okay, and the angle that it wants us to find is angle B. So what you do when you're looking at this, you are looking at the relationship between angle B, this 12, and this 20. Well, 20 is always the hypotenuse. But what is 12 in relation to angle B? Is it opposite or adjacent? Josh? Adjacent. So we're dealing with adjacent and hypotenuse. Which trig function is that? Jared? Cosine. Remember? CA. Adjacent hypotenuse. So what you would say is this. Cosine of angle B is adjacent 12 over hypotenuse 20. Cosine of B is 12 over 20, okay? Then you use your calculator and you figure out what 12 over 20 is as a decimal. Okay, so 12 divided by 20, and that should be 0.6, 60%, 0.6. We don't have the angle measure, so you use inverse cosine. So that means on most calculators you would hit second function cosine, that puts that little -1, and in the parentheses 0.6 and equals, and it tells you 53.13, and you round to the nearest degree, so 53 degrees. You would say the measure of angle B, little m, angle B. Measure of angle B is 53 degrees. So you go and you analyze what information you're given. How are the sides related to the angle in question? Pick the correct trig function. Write the correct ratio. use inverse of that trig ratio? Ethan.
Could you have got the exact same thing if you would have used just the sine of b?
No, the sine of b is opposite over hypotenuse, and right now we don't have the opposite side of angle b. If you did, then the answer would be yes. Okay, we don't have it though, so we're only going to use the 12 and the 20. You don't then go use Pythagorean theorem and find AC, little b or whatever you want to call it, and then use that. You really want to stick with the information given on everything so that you don't make a mistake along the way and then you're using incorrect values to continue on. Okay, you always use what's given. Jerry, did you have a question? Okay, so in that one, the measure of angle B is 53 degrees. Okay, example B. I'm going to erase this. Example B. We have a 35, a 17, and then a question mark with angle Q. You see how they put other letters in there? I told you they would. Oh, there is the, yeah. Okay, so you have to see how angle Q is related to those two measures. 35 is the hypotenuse, so you don't have to worry about that. But how is 17 related to angle Q? Is it opposite or is it adjacent, Octavia? Opposite. So we've got opposite and hypotenuse. Which trig function, my tree? Sine. So you would write this. You would write sine of Q is equal to 17 over 35. Opposite over hypotenuse. Then you would write sine of Q equals, and you take your calculator and you do 17 divided by 35, and you get 0.4857. Okay, remember you want to go at least 4 places. We don't have the angle measure, so therefore you must use inverse sine. Okay, you're going to apply inverse sine to 0.4857. And you would get 29.05 and so on, but we're rounding to the nearest degree, so I would say the measure of angle Q equals 29 degrees. Now we're moving on to example C, and on example C, the directions say solve the right triangle, and what that means is anything that is not labeled with a measurement you must find. So angle D in this example is our right angle, so we're not finding that. Angle E is 62. We don't have an angle F. We only have one side, 15 centimeters. We don't have the hypotenuse, and we don't have the side that would be considered little f. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in. This is little f. This is little d. Okay, and we would have to find angle f. Now, crazy as it seems, some of this is going to be this simple. Okay? How much do the 3 angles of a triangle add up to? 180. If you have a right triangle, which we do, the 2 angles that are not right are always complementary, meaning they add up to 90. So I'm going to find the measure of angle F by simply taking 90 minus 62. Okay? That makes the measure of angle F 28 degrees. We okay with that?
Yes.
That's all there was to part of it. You're a third of the way done. Okay, third of the way done. Now I'm going to tell you this. We know 28's right, but as you proceed, you will not use 28 to find anything else on this problem, you will always go back to 62. Okay? You always use the information given only to proceed. And we will only use 15. Okay, so let's start with this. How does angle E relate to the 15? Ben? Opposite. So we have opposite. So let's go ahead and work with side D, which is hypotenuse, first. Okay, so we're going to look for little d first. So we're going to go with little d. Now, opposite and hypotenuse would be which trig function? My tree. Sine. Opposite and hypotenuse. So this is how you write this. Sine of 62 degrees equals 15 over d. Sine of 62 degrees, opposite over hypotenuse, 15 over d. All right, now I am going to figure out what sine of 62 degrees is. We know how to do that, right? On your calculator, you hit the sine, not inverse sine. Now we know the angle measure. So sine of 62 degrees, and I'm going to write 4 decimal places, 0.8829 equals 15 over d. All right, I'm going to look at this like a proportion. So basically put that over 1. And we're going to cross. 0.8829 d equals 15. Are you good with that? How do you solve for d? Divide by 0.8829. So 15 divided by 0.8829, and we get 16.989. On these, I would round to the nearest tenth. And be careful on this one because the 8 says what to do with the 9. Round up. So you got to put 17.0, not just 17. 17.0 centimeters you would put right here to show that it has been rounded. If you just put 17, it looks like it came out exactly to that, and of course it did not. All right, next we need to find side F. You go back to 62 degrees, 15, and F. 15 is opposite. What's F? To 62 degrees, what's F? Adjacent. Which one uses opposite and adjacent? Tangent. So, has everybody got the blue part of that problem written down? Okay, so I'm going to erase this so we can go look for F now. Okay, we're looking for F. And we're using tangent. So for F, we go tangent of 62 degrees. Opposite is 15, adjacent is F. We know the degree, so we hit tangent of 62 degrees on our calculator. And I get 1.8807. And that equals 15 over F. Put this over 1 and I cross. So 1.8807F equals 15. Solve for F by dividing both sides, 1.8807. And F would equal 15 divided by 1.8807. And it would be 7.975. So again, something similar. If we round to the nearest tenth, the 7 says 9 is going to go up. So 8.0 centimeters.